Hi, everyone, and welcome to Production Value Matters, the AV Advisor episode for the month of December. I'm your host, Matthew Byrne, and this month we reached out to our network and to the event industry as a whole and asked a question of what the industry wanted to know and if they had some quote unquote burning question. And so we gathered a few questions, and I'll be answering them on this episode. If you have a question that you would like to ask on a further episode, please, you can send a voice recording or just a note to connect@byrneproductionservices.com. Again, that's connect, CONNECT, at byrneproductionservices.com. And hopefully we'll get you a little audio clip on the episode and answer your question in an upcoming episode of AV Advisor, which comes out once a month on the podcast. So let's talk about some of the questions that we received. I was reached out to via LinkedIn, where you can always find me and ask a question at any time about career advancement in this industry. And this was a individual who had been working and producing their own events and really wanted to get into the world of agencies as an executive producer or an event producer, was having a little bit of difficulty. So the question they asked is, I'm interviewing for event producer roles, but after several final round interviews, I'm not landing anything. I think the main hesitation is my lack of agency/industry experience. As a producer, I'm like a one-man band, so I get it might look like a bit of a risky investment. The question is, beyond continuing to produce my own events, what else can I do to break into the agency or full-time role? Freelance contract would be great, but those opportunities have been somewhat challenging to find. This is a really great question, and especially if as we've talked about in previous episodes of the podcast, and check out the panel that we do every month with our industry panel. You know, the workforce is changing. There's a lot of people entering the industry who have related experience, perhaps in a marketing or in an entertainment role. And so before I answer the question of what I think this person should do, I'm going to say that as an industry, we should be a little bit more open to allow taking risks on people that may have related and commensurate experience, but not necessarily that strict. Like, I worked for an event agency for 30 years and now I'm going to change jobs. I understand, being an employer myself, that, you know, there is a risk factor in that, but the most success we've had over the last few years has been actually recognizing people for their core skill sets and then bringing up their experience. There's a little bit of a learning curve, and a knowledge gap, but those are pretty easy to close. So, you know, in the industry as a whole, you know, I have been in the industry long enough to that when I started in the industry, it wasn't really an industry. It was people who had either come from the world of arts and entertainment, because there was a lot of value proposition in coming into this industry, and especially through audiovisual and production, or through hospitality, people who had worked and learned how to run hotels and run restaurants suddenly found themselves in this opportunity where that they could bring that same mentality and skill set into an industry vertical like events and meetings that was very hyper specific. So this has all happened before. And so I think as an industry, we still have to remain open to say, well, look, they worked in marketing, or they worked in festivals, or they worked in film and television. This is a great place to get the right work ethic, the right skill sets for project management and technical things and all of those things. They can come from those industries. And so to this gentleman who is reaching out to me, the best advice I would give is, yes, freelancing and contracting. A lot of organizations right now are using a contract to hire methodology instead of taking risks. So what they'll do is they'll go out and they'll contract somebody for 3 or 4 months and say, wow, we love working with you. You know, now we're going to offer you a full-time job. So I think freelancing contracting is the best way to do that. There are multiple ways that I think you can seek out those freelance in contract positions. One, obviously, as he had done, reach out on LinkedIn and don't make the ask, hey, I want a job. It's just awareness. Like the people who are hiring for freelance and contract positions just need to know you're out there. So certainly do that. The second thing that I'll say is that there are tons of communities that are built around that freelance and contract world. Whether it's Tempo Live Events, which is a service that is run out of the United States, where you can sign up, you can tell people you're really good at, and they regularly post. And actually, the team at Tempo will go out and try to solicit freelance contracts from various agencies, various audiovisual companies, and production firms, because to them, like it reinforces their value in the community. So that's a great place to see current job postings, to see different things that are happening, and get your name out there. The other one I'll point out is communities like the Vendry or Liz Lathan's event community. I believe Will Curran still runs his event pros community, where people are regularly posting about, hey, we need a freelancer. Hey, even people are posting to say, hey, I am a freelancer. Let me know if anything's up. And that has been a really great resource for those contracting. So that is my biggest advice there. The next question that we got was, somebody posted when we asked the questions that they'd love to learn more about emerging technologies and their impact. And specifically, have we explored AI integration in our process? The short answer is always and never. I think the industry is well known for at least trying to adopt emerging technologies as soon as they come out the door. I think as an industry, we sometimes stumble over that. We make some mistakes. We go, oh, we didn't really get any return out of it. And it sort of goes up and down. As far as AI integration, there are tons of ways that you can integrate AI into your production process, from the pre-production process using things like Midjourney to start to ideate design and creative concepts, which should not be the final project. Like all things with AI is a tool that you should use to make your processes better. The same way that I could use a stone hammer and a bunch of bits of rock to build a house, or I could use saws and power drills and levels and lasers and all those things to be able to build a house more effectively. I think AI needs to be one of those tools that is part of your tool chest that you use in a professional way to start that process. So specifically, we use Midjourney sometimes when we're doing a creative ideation, so that we can throw some ideas to the client and to the team and say, hey, what does everybody think about these kind of directions? And then once we figure out a really interesting thing that everybody's excited about, then we get to work on using more traditional digital technologies like drafting software and rendering software to be able to meaningfully affect design. But we're certainly integrating that as part of the start of our creative process. AI can still be integrated into data analytics and data processing. Like, the industry has adapted to the role it plays in data capture to an nth degree. And certainly AI can be integrated into process to understand that data and to visualize it and to parse it out. Again, not as a one-stop shop, there goes my job as a data analyst, but more of, here's my tool to make that process faster. The way that I've always looked at AI is the same way that I looked at Excel when that became very popular in the 90s. All of a sudden, like, you didn't have to do math by hand on an old crank calculator. I'm being a little bit facetious with that example, but Excel made that process faster so that we could present numbers in a way, or do the math around numbers in a way that was much more efficient, and then gave us enough time to be more creative and do more fun things. So I think that's how AI should integrate into your process. Third question that we received is, what factors you have to think about while using an LED screen on your event. And this is one that I think people maybe sort of run headfirst into without realizing there's a lot of complications. It's a cool technology. It is becoming more affordable as supply chain issues start to alleviate. But even before then, there was, about 5, 10 years ago, LED was really hard to acquire. Now there's a lot on the market. There's a lot of variety of different resolutions and they're now integrating carbon fiber framing so that it's much lighter, all of those kind of things. So there's a lot of LED product on there. I think about 5 or 10 years ago, the debate was LED versus projection. Projection comes with its own challenges. You need distance for this from the screen to the lens. You've got to figure out where you put the projector so that nobody walks in front of it, all of those kind of things. And LED tile was a really great way to save space because again, it's all one surface. But there are some logistical implications that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about when they're thinking about, hey, I'm going to put a big LED screen on my show. So there's three things that I always like to point out. One is related to the weight and the infrastructure needed for an LED screen. So the first tip I'll say is you cannot use hotel stage, which everybody knows as it's the venue stage. It's that fold up 6x8 stage that you usually get included in your rental in a venue, whether that's a hotel or a convention center, depending on the contract value there. And everybody sort of thinks, oh, well, stage, like I can just put an LED screen on that stage. Unfortunately, you can't. That hotel stage is not rated for the engineered weight and ballast that you would require for an LED screen. So going back to projection, a projection screen is relatively lightweight. It's got an aluminum frame and then a stretched out surface that adheres to that frame. And it's, for like a 24-foot wide 16:9 screen, you're maybe talking about, 50 or 60 pounds. Remember an LED screen, each one of those panels that make up the LED screen weigh about 50 or 60 pounds each. Some, again, carbon fiber frames are getting much lighter. They're about 20, 25 pounds each. But as soon as you have sort of 16 panels wide and 9 panels high, now you're getting into a significant weight. And then that also needs the right ground support structure, rigging, or ballast to be able to add weight to it so that it doesn't topple over. And so what you have to do is make sure that you include in your logistics planning and your budget planning getting what are called 4x8 standard stage decks. And so they are usually made out of steel. They have a lot of reinforced engineering in them. And so a lot of clients get surprised of, hey, I budgeted, $50,000 or $60,000 for this gigantic LED screen. Fantastic. Now all I have to think about is, another $5,000 to $10,000 in rigging infrastructure and staging. So always just remember that that's something that has to be factored in. Related to that, of course, is the rigging and engineering. So when you're doing an LED screen, and let's say you want to rig it to the ceiling, because again, you want to not have, a massive stage for it to rest on or weight limitations or whatever it might be, you still have to factor in the rigging hardware that is required. And so what those are called are bumpers. And so at the top of an LED, like a column of LED tile, there'll be a large steel bracket that adds about, depending on the bracket, from 4 inches to 12 inches worth of height that you lose inside the rigging, plus the counting for the truss and the motor and all of the other hardware. And most LED tile will require specialized truss. This is higher capacity truss. It is usually larger footprint. Standard truss is 12-inch by 12-inch box truss. But then as soon as you go into rigging an LED screen, more than likely you will be required to up the rigging capacity of the truss, which means you'll have to go to at least a 16 by 16 inch type B truss or going up to 20 or 24 inch box truss. So those are factors that you really need to think about. And then the biggest thing that I think everybody should think about in LED screens is about content. So I can't tell you how many times I have seen just a brilliant LED screen with the highest resolution, really dense pixel space, and it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But essentially, it has a still image on it. And worse, it's white. So on the white thing, so white backgrounds look amazing on your desktop when you're planning your content and building your presentation and you go, oh my God, this like that word is really going to pop out because it's bright blue, like this really saturated deep blue on this white background. And everybody's going to see that word, success. And they're going to see it on my presentation and they're going to get the impact. And then when you get that on site with an LED screen, and an LED screen particularly, it will blind your audience and will take them out of your presentation. Remember that LED stands for light emitting diode. So if you have a high resolution screen with a lot of LED pixels on it, every one of those LED tiles is shooting or emitting light directly at your audience. So use dark backgrounds, first of all, and make the text a white or a light color. The reason that you do that is that content is then on a less saturated background. You're not blinding your audience. And ironically, the words that you see on or the graphics or whatever content you want to put on that LED screen then is emphasized more from a dark background and it stands out more. The other thing I'll say about content for an LED screen is you really need to think about how you use movement, depth, and pace in that content. Again, if you have a still image, it will be stunning. It will be beautiful. It will wow your audience of how big that panoramic view is. But if there's nothing happening, that impact diminishes quickly over time. So if you're going to be using a large LED screen, my biggest advice is to really plan how can we use that surface to animate and tell a story. So if you're going to do a title slide, how much animation do we need to put on that? Like how do we need stuff to fly in from the left and right or animate on? Do we need to use panoramics? Do we need to use depth in our panoramics or any of our still images to ensure that we really get the impact? Otherwise, I feel like it might as well have been a print image that you put up. And so, yes, you can easily swap out that image just because of video technology. But I think a lot of people sell themselves short on the ability to use that LED screen for its most impactful way. So those are the questions that we received this month. And again, if you have a question that you want to ask and you would like it addressed on the podcast, send a recording to connect@byrneproductionservices.com and we will put that on the air. But as this is our last AV Advisor episode of the year, I thought I would wrap up with a little message that I always like to publish at the end of the year. And it seems that every year that I've sent out this message at the end of the year, it's always about challenges on the horizon. In 2020, it was a pandemic. By the time we got back to live, it was about inflation and cost jumps. Then the biggest challenge was about labor shortages, supply chain issues, and rising costs. In 2025, it'll bring its own challenges. As an industry that champions gathering together to solve problems, building community, and sharing stories, looking at what 2025 could bring seems a little daunting. But I know people in this industry. I know how resilient they can be. At an event while I was speaking on a panel a while back, I was asked whether we could withstand another economic shock like the pandemic. My answer was, and always will be, absolutely. I'm never worried about event professionals. As an industry, we have proven time and time again that no matter what is thrown at us, we adapt. We meet it head on and we make things happen. We do this by being hyper-focused on objectives, being realistic with our teams, clients, and stakeholders, and refusing to assume anything will go well. Event professionals have contingency plans for contingency plans. When I was a young man and I was working in the arts, I had the privilege to sit down and speak with one of Canada's leading artistic directors. I asked her why she loved working in theater while casually having a tea on a break from rehearsal. She said something that I will never forget. She said to me, "No other industry can do what we do. No matter more than a year out, we promise to deliver a show, and it will be on time, and it will be on budget. There may be some choices we have to make to compromise on a wish list or some element that needs to be adjusted to get it in on time and on budget. But the show will open on the day we said it will. It will tell a story that we set out to tell, and it will entertain its audience." But countless other industries across our economy will push out a launch date, overrun a budget by millions, if not billions. But we don't. The old expression that the show must go on also applies to professionals in this industry. So as I look into 2025 with the threats of labor shortages, inflation, and tariff tit for tat, things that will affect us and the work we do, I'm not worried. We are the most resilient and agile industry in the world, and I am immensely proud to be part of it. Again, this is our last episode of the AV Advisor before the end of the year. So from the team here at Byrne Production Services and Production Value Matters, we wish you well and want you to have some time to rest and recharge, and we will see you in the new year. And of course, head over to productionvaluematters.com, and there you can subscribe, check out old episodes, and get access to more event planning resources. Thank you very much. Production Value Matters, the Business Events Podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To learn more about Byrne Production Services and how we can achieve your business goals with meaningful event designs and elevated production value, head over to byrneproductionservices.com. For tailored AV consulting, check out theavadvisor.com, where you can book a free 15-minute consultation. Also, be sure to search for Production Value Matters, the Business Events Podcast, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening.